Hello there, my name is Tim Geraghty. I'm a vet with SRUC Vet Services, and we're here with George again to start a discussion on health planning and the potential gains, both in finance and carbon, that health planning can bring to a farm enterprise like this. I'm interested in health planning, I'm interested in preventative medicine, and have spent most of my career trying to learn as much as I can about it. And what I'm talking about today is a relatively new process that we've developed within SRUC, which we're calling dynamic health planning. Now, dynamic health planning is a little different to a standard health plan, and two of the key ways that it's different. The first is that it's farmer-led, so it's the farmer and the farm team that puts this health plan together. Of course, it's much more valuable if the vet contributes, and it's more valuable if a nutritionist contributes, but it has to be done by the farmer first and foremost. It's not something you can print online. It's not something that you do once a year just before your inspection date. It's something that you set up at the start of your production cycle and then work at it and revisit it 3 or 4 times during a year. So George, we're going to get started with a mini dynamic health plan today for Easter Howgate and put some thought into the early steps as to how we'd get started. George, I wonder if you'd give us just a little background on the spring calving herd, just rough numbers, breeding dates, that kind of thing.
A recap from the previous, we've got a big herd of beef cows here at Easter Howgate. We predominance in spring calving cows. We aim for about 300 cows in the spring, we have about 100 in the autumn. We're on a shed here today with the autumn cows and calves that have just recently been housed. Health planning for us has always been really important, not only for the sort of normal benefits that a normal farmer would have in terms of kind of financial return and actually knowing what the cattle are actually doing. But for us, we've got the additional requirement to provide calves of a known parentage and of a known health status to go into trials and things, because the last thing we want to do if we're doing a feeding trial for calves to come down with a preventable disease of some description. The cattle, for some of you know, they're largely Limousin Angus or Angus Limousin crisscross breeding. That program's been going on the go for quite a long time using an AI program. And some of you in the background will see the odd ling cow as well. We have 100 odd ling cows that use the sort of higher up grass and the more rougher parts of the business. But the calves, the progeny for all of these cattle are used as part of the trials. And once they're finished, we take them to slaughter most of them. So we've got the data from birth to death, as it were.
Great. So today, just for the sake of this conversation, we're going to just think about the spring calving cows, which I think is somewhere in the region of 240, 200. That thereabouts.
Confirmed calf, yes.
Yes, cows to calve this coming spring. So we want to focus on that. One thing that's helpful when we set out to write a health plan or create a health plan is think about why we're doing it. And let's get a wee bit crude about it and make it in financial terms, because ultimately we want carbon improvements, we want healthier stock for a whole range of reasons. They're better to work with, etc. Clearly a high priority here, but fundamentally we want to chase a net margin and profit. We looked at the figures for Easter Howgate for last year, just from the spring herd, and just to give us a ballpark figure to hold in our mind, approximately if we could move the whole herd to textbook performance across fertility, calf survival and growth, there is an increase in net output of up to about £80,000 per year, which is a considerable chunk of money. If we could just make a marginal gain, somewhere around a 3 or 4% gain across each of those figures, then we could maybe realise somewhere in the region of £18,000 per year from the spring herd.
That would be useful.
Does it sound realistic to you? Is that a figure that you
Yeah, it sounds useful. I mean, I would always caveat that the 80,000 would be in a perfect world, and we're far from a perfect world. We have constraints others have. But I mean, a £20,000 marginal gain would be a very useful thing to chase.
Fantastic, excellent. So that's the money we're after. That's where the profit in health planning lies, and that potential gain that we can make. But the carbon in health planning lies in exactly the same space. If we move these cattle to be more productive in terms of financial output, they will be producing more product for every kilo of carbon that the herd produces. So that's what we're chasing, £20,000, and we're going to start by setting some targets. Good. All right, we're chasing a marginal gain. We estimate that marginal gain might be worth in the region of £20,000 and a whole load of carbon. And we're going to start by setting very specific targets for what this spring herd is going to do next year. Very briefly, we'll review what they did last year, because then we can set a sensible marginal improvement for next year. So we'll run through this chart, and George, you just keep me right, make sure this is correct. We had 249 pregnant cows in the spring herd last year. with a small number of twins brought us up at this time last year to 254 fetuses, calves conceived on farm. Of those we registered, so that's alive at the first few days of life, 232. So we lost somewhere between conception and registration about 9% of those calves. We weaned, at 200 days old, we weaned somewhere in the region of 220 calves last year. So we're down at about 87, another 12 calves lost between registration and weaning. Our weights then, 200-day corrected weaning weight of 256 kilos, giving us an average daily gain across the herd of 1.08 kilos per day. And then the last thing, because it comes last in terms of the cow's production cycle, getting those cows back in calve. We did pretty well with a very tight calving here, just 9 weeks of breeding. Our cows came in at 86% and our heifers came in at 61%. That's maiden heifers going to the AI for the first time. George, any comments on them or any thoughts on them before we move on?
Obviously, starting on the thing you finished off with, my heifer conceptions are something we're very concerned about and something we've got sort of active programmes to deal with going forward. The cows are good enough. Again, they're okay, they're not fantastic. I like to think we could do a wee bit better. In terms of the calf weights, I'm quite happy with the calf weights at 256 kilos on average, but like everything, on average, a foot in the fire and a foot in the fridge, you're okay. My concern is that is masking the fact that 20 to 30% of the calves are not actually achieving that. There's some calves doing exceptionally well, but there are other calves that are not doing quite so much. That's partly due to a breed thing, but it is also to do with the age of the cows and how we manage the cows. I think it's something we need to have a think about going forward. In terms of the actual numbers going up to the start, I suppose this is where disasters, everybody gets disaster zones in a herd here. I mean, if you think about this number, that 232 is what we registered, that's what we got a passport for. However, 12 of them departed this earth before they were weaned. So that's something as a farmer, that's the factor that we need to be very, very aware of. In terms of the conception and stuff at the start, I mean, we're where we are. I mean, that's what we've got with 249 cows in calf. That's driven by how well the bulls did and how well the AI programme did before. As I said before, we're very, very tight on the bulling period. It is 9 weeks, whether it's bulls or AI. That is the sort of red lines that we want to cross over, as it were. Like I once had a client in a previous job who, when you asked him when he started calving, he would say at the end of the last war. That is certainly not what we are. We are looking at 9-week calving, bulls out.
Magic. All right. So we've looked at last year, we know the money available, we have done really well on seasonality in terms of breeding cycle, 9 weeks, tight and has been for some time. We've got good growth rates, although there's a bottom end of that we need to pay attention to, and we can improve on particularly heifer fertility and probably calf survival are the two. That's where the main part of that £20,000 we're chasing lies. We're going to set targets now, fetus to fetus, so we've done our PDs, we've been ahead of the game. We know that we've got 234 pregnant cows, and with twins, we've got 240 calves conceived. So how many this year, George, will we register? What's the target?
Well, if I recall what I had last year, although I had more cows last year, I think I registered 232 calves. I would like to think I can register 230 calves this year. I think we need to aim for that at least. The conception, I mean, even with the heifers and stuff, we're putting in a lot of management into that now to make sure these beasts are fit to breed. One of the reasons our cow numbers are down is we've withdrawn any difficult breeders, anything at all, so we have genuinely efficient cows, hopefully.
And that would be a big improvement. In a percentage term, we were about 91% last year. This would bring us in 95, 96% this year against calves conceived. How many will we wean?
Well, last year we lost 12 calves. Over the summertime for various disasters, I suppose. I think we should be aiming for 220 again. Is that unreasonable? 220?
Okay, yeah, 220. Again, it would be a slight improvement. There was 12 calves lost last year. That would be 10 calves lost this year, so probably achievable.
Hopefully.
Could be slightly more ambitious, but we'll go with 220. The weights then, what will they weigh? Do you want to shall we do it on growth rate per day?
Well, I mean, what I got last year, just to recap, was 256 kilos at 1.08 kilos. Now, we know that there's a tail end in that. I think the 256 kilos, I think I'm quite happy with, but that's a standardised 200-day weight. I want it on all my calves, or get the bottom end up. So I want a better live weight gain. I think this is what I was aiming for, rather than work too much with the weight. I would suggest that if we get everything to 1.2, that would be fantastic. That's probably too far, is it?
That's going to be too high on last year. Let's go for at least 80% of calves, which would be an improvement, doing 1.1. I think if you get 80% doing 1.1, again, it's the marginal gain we want. We can improve on that again the following year, but that would be a fantastic outcome. Cows pregnant, just a percentage here. It's only 9 weeks. We got 86% last year. What will we get this year?
I always like more, but I mean, if we can get 90%, that'd be fine.
Absolutely, 4% improvement. We'll take that.
But I mean, in our defence, we are using an AI program and bulls in that, so there is always the effect of the AI in this.
Do you want a wiggle room? Do you want 8 to 8?
I put a plus or minus 2%.
Okay, we'll accept that. And the heifer pregnancy rate to AI.
I mean, I have to admit, my heifer conceptions is not good enough. I mean, last year we're sitting at 61%. I want it above 75, preferably nearer 80, but above 75.
Okay, and again, that would be a huge achievement based on last year.
It is, but I mean, I think it's achievable because we're heifers now. What we're doing is, or what the plan is, that we're going to, they're all pelvic scored. So any sort of free martins, anything that is no cycling and stuff we can knock out at the very start. They're the right age, they're the right weight. They have no reason not to breed. We've got a specific programme for them this next year as well. So I'd like to think in a 9-week programme, they should be able to stop the heifer, 3/4 of the heifer, surely.
Good man, brilliant. And we have set very specific, very measurable, achievable, relevant and time-limited targets for George at the start of this dynamic health plan. And we know this one sheet of paper now is worth £20,000. So it's an expensive bit of paper, it's a worthwhile bit of paper to think about. And we're going to take this and stick it up in the farm office for the whole farm team to see, and we'll track that now over the course of the year.
And you'll notice it's been highlighted with hazard tape, so I'm sure the boys will appreciate that.
All right, we know the money we're chasing. We know how we're going to do it, as in we've set very specific targets for the year. The next step in a dynamic health plan is to think about why are we not going to achieve those goals? What's going to go wrong? How bad can it be when it's at its worst that will stop us achieving those goals? And when we do that, we're going to focus on just the next 3 or 4 months. We don't need to do the whole year. We're just going to think about what risks are those cows facing right now and in the next weeks and months that are going to stop us achieving those targets. The best way to do that, I would suggest, is get the whole farm team together, have the poster up on the wall, and we're going to have a cup of coffee and spend half an hour, 40 minutes brainstorming what can go wrong. And out of that, for every one idea that any of your team comes up with that says that might happen, this might happen, we need to think of one thing we can do today or in the coming weeks that will reduce the likelihood. So common risks at this time of year that I'm sure will come out of it will be around abortion risk, coming from feed and from forage, from infectious disease, from cow handling, and we'll have some thought on cow nutrition, of course, and making sure cows are in the right condition for calving. We call these a banana skin session because we're looking for the banana skins that are going to stop you achieving your £20,000. Do you think you would manage to run this session for us?
I think we can manage to do this. Like, I mean, I'm actually just started a new cattleman today anyway. Like, so I mean, we need about an induction with him in the next fortnight, 3 weeks anyway. So this would actually be a very good exercise to do at the same time, and a bit of team building with the guys as well to try and just challenge what some of these targets are. They might think I'm mad, but equally they're going to be the guys that fill in the calf creeps and that later on in the season. But I mean, before we get to that point, they are the guys on the ground who are actually doing the calving. If that's where the calf mortality is. But before that, in terms of actually handling the cows and making sure we get the right diets to them at the right times and the nutritional status is right. Yep, that's absolutely all things they can do.
Brilliant, brilliant. All right. So we've set up a banana skin session. We're going to do that 3 or 4 times over the year. We just plan 3 months ahead, 4 months ahead, and we keep our eye on any preventative actions we can think of to help us achieve those targets. Monitoring here is very good. We saw the figures. We got those figures in about 10 minutes. So we've got very good data streams. So I'm not going to talk too much on monitoring. Please, if you want to try a dynamic health plan yourself, don't let monitoring be an issue. all you need, once you've set your target, you just need to know, did you hit your target or not? That's the minimum you need to do. Quite often that just means doing your PDs, counting how many weaned calves you have and weighing them. That can be as little as that. It can help you see if you've hit your targets. So don't let monitoring be a target. And then this time next year, we must come back and review. We're going to keep this piece of paper and we're going to see how we got on. And that closes the circle when we complete the thing and we think, right, how did we get on? And right now, I suspect, and this is nothing to do with Easter Howgate, this is just life and livestock, we are going to fail. We're not going to hit those targets.
Sod's law says something will not go right.
Exactly, we're not going to hit those targets. And as part of dynamic health planning and expectation management, we don't actually mind. We've set very ambitious gains. We're going to work very hard to get them, but we may not get them and we probably won't get them. Now, the key thing here is that that's not really failure. Not hitting your target is okay. Failure is not learning from it. So the major challenge, the big thing we have to do is that we know we didn't hit the target. We don't beat ourselves up about that. We've all tried our best, but we're going to learn why did we not hit the target. And that means over this year, if we do have abortions, we must investigate them. If we've got stillbirths, we have to get them in for a post-mortem. If we've got pneumonia, scours, any of these problems, we must be doing diagnostics and understanding what's driving us not hitting that target. And as long as we learn from not hitting the target, then that's no failure at all.
No, I mean, I think the important thing is learning and managing the risks that we can genuinely and sensibly manage, and not doing daft things like doing something we shouldn't have done, that kind of stuff. Or at least if we do, put a hand up to say we did it, or didn't do it.
Good man. Thank you, George. We'll be back in a year.
Well, I hope so. With 20 grand, that'd be good.
With 20K.